Oscar. Last night was fun. Yeah, it was
Last time
last night.
Oh, last night. I
Yeah.
was like, last time. What are you talking about? I was like, yeah, last night. Yeah, last night was fun.
Last night
chill.
was fun. It was different vibe.
chill.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Once a Project Podcast, brought to you by your host, me, Brandon, Laura. Joining me is my co-host.
Jackie.
Joining us is a very special guest, and I wanted to have you in here, bro. And I've been wanting to have you in here because you first, you know, who brought you up to me first was Lily. Actually, shout out to Lily.
Shout out to Lily.
She's like, you should have my friend Oscar. He's like a social worker type. And I'm like, that sounds super interesting. I'd love to have someone like that around.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we come around Altared's 50th episode. Shout out to Rod. And you show up. And that's when we first meet kind of face to face. Because I sent you a request on Instagram and you hadn't accepted it.
You sent it after, dude.
No, I said it before.
You checked your phone and you sent it after. Because you were like, I sent it to you. I'm like, I didn't see anything, dude. And then after that, you're like, oh, wait, here you go. And then you sent it. So, because once you said that, I'm like, did I not see it? And I was like, dude, I don't know.
All right, I might have sent it after. And then ever since then, we've had a few times where we've kicked it basically, and it's been fun. But yeah, bro, if you can just present yourself and kind of what you do in a whole.
Yeah, so my name is Oscar Reyes, LMSW, and I'm just a counselor, therapist. Yeah, like you said, I have my bachelor's and master's and social work, and I am a licensed master social worker. Yeah, and so with that, I can do like counseling, therapy, and social work stuff. So.
Yeah. Damn. So for me, like in my podcast, right, I'm a huge advocate of therapy and counseling, you know, and just that whole field in a whole. And so I wanted to have my therapist come in here, but I'm still like in her patient's, you know, record or whatnot. So I can't like do it until she gives me my release card per se. And so when I heard that you were like a counselor, I was like, hell yeah, like I'm gonna for sure have you in here. And a question that I've always had with counselors and therapists, and maybe you can answer through your story, is why go towards that career when it's such an emotional draining job?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not like a labor job. You know, you're not lifting anything heavy, but you're doing all the heavy lifting emotionally. And so, how does it start for you to decide to go into that field?
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that. It's because it's not that labor. That was definitely one of the reasons. I'm like, I hate all these like high labor jobs. It's just not for me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm going to get something less physically demanding. But like, that was just one of the little things. But like, it wasn't like one of like the major things, you know, that I had on my list of things.
What did you want to do aside from counseling? 'Cause, did you have other options, or was it that specific?
I honestly didn't have like something in mind. When I first got in, I think I put down just like a dental hygienist, like Lily, or like assistant something. But then I took like my first like somewhat high level science class and was kind of like, no, I'm okay. Yeah, it was way back then. This is a while ago now. And so, honestly, like I never really had in mind like to be a counselor like out of high school. I was just taking classes and I was doing all right. And then I think I had to take like this one class where it was just like it was an elective class. It was like only one credit or something.
Yeah.
And the teacher that taught it, or the professor that taught it, was one of the school counselors there, so she provided some of the counseling services to the students here in Idaho Falls. And then I remember I just like did an assignment with her, and then it just sounded pretty chill, you know. And so I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I think most of my credits at the time had lined up for that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just kind of check it out. And then somewhere along the line, someone had made a comment like, yeah, well, if you go into social work, you can do counseling once you get your master's. And then you just have like a bigger variety of things to do. And so I ended up going that way, which took longer. And, you know, I don't know, dude. It just kind of kept changing for me. Like the more I kind of got into it, the more I kind of realized like, oh yeah, I'd want to do that. Because like I kind of realized in the social work field after I got my bachelor's, like I don't really want to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of at the point where I was like, I don't even know if I want to be in this field anymore. And I almost got out of it.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, a bunch of different things happened and I ended up finally going back to grad school, like in 2020, like when everything shut down. Like I got accepted and then like the year, you know, that year that I was supposed to start, like, you know, things like just shut down. And so it ended up going online, which, you know, the whole reason I had signed up there was to go in person. And then, because like, I'm like, you know, I like being in class and I learned better. I'm more focused that way because, you know, online just is terrible for me. Like
the physical interactions.
Yeah. So it sucks, but I made it through it. And I don't know, just somewhere along the ways, you know, I just kind of start realizing like, yeah, I like doing this. And I've always had my struggles with like my mental health and stuff. And that was kind of like a thing too that kind of pushed me into it. Like I've seen some memes recently where like therapist memes where it's like becoming a therapist as like a trauma response, you know? And I was like, damn.
You know, and that's funny that you mentioned that because I feel like the reason why I'm such a big advocate towards therapy is because I've been in therapy for close to 6 years now. And I've learned so much that I've gotten so curious of how the mind works with your emotions and how that's tied to some of your physical responses towards things and whatnot. So I like yesterday when I showed you those books, dude. Like those books are not so. Yeah. They're more like like a doctor would read those books. I feel like, you know. Yeah. Not so much like just a regular person. Right. But I buy those books because I'm like I want to learn about the mind and the cause of a lot of things because I try to understand my own mental health and where things come from. So that's funny you mentioned that. And I actually did want to become a therapist for some time too. Yeah. And then I was like, man, I feel like that's a lot of heavy, like emotional work for myself, you know? Right. And I feel like I would get too attached to my clients, you know, which I think would be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is definitely, it is hard. I mean, and even like in the social work program, some of the faculty would sometimes joke like about like, are you guys sure you guys want to do this? And then it'd be like, well, I don't know anymore now that you said that, you know? Yeah.
Give you that doubt?
Yeah, in a way, but because it was tough. And I mean, I did have an idea and then, you know, actually got into the field and I was like, oh man, this is a lot.
Yeah. So what's the difference between social work and what you do now, which is counseling?
I mean, social work, you can do a lot. Like you could work like at a hospital for like the government. Like you could do a lot. There's a whole bunch of different. It's pretty broad social work stuff. You can be working with like in adoption, people like foster care kids, you can do a lot more. Like it's pretty broad of like the things you can go. Like hospice is a thing that a lot of social workers do too. There's a lot more options honestly, but then you can get very more like niche into the different spots, you know. Because like a hospital setting is way different than like a counseling setting, you know, like working at a school. And I haven't done, I mean, I've done a few different things, but like, and they've all been kind of different. So it is very different. Cause like in counseling, you know, or therapy, you know, I'm just sitting there talking, listening, assessing, doing all these things, you know, with people. Right. And kind of figuring out like what are the goals to work on or like what needs to, you know, versus like in some places like that work with like counselors that like social work, you're working on those goals with those clients sometimes. Interesting. So it's very, like I said, with social work, it's very broad. And then with counseling, you're kind of more just
in
doing
one
that.
place.
Yeah, and that's like you said, in the one place. Like, when I was doing my bachelor's, that was another reason I went to get my master's. Was like I had to go see people at their houses and stuff and drive places or. And I just kind of got to the point too where I'm like, I just kind of want to be in one spot. I don't like going to all these other places.
Right.
And so now, like, yeah, people come to my office and see me, and so it's nicer in that way too for me.
Yeah. How long did it take for you? Because how long does it take for you to get your counselor degree where you can work in an office?
Yeah, well, there's a few different routes you can go because if you go just strictly into counseling, it's like more direct. You go just like you get your, I think even bachelor's, and then you can go straight into counseling. You can do. There's a lot.
How long did it take you?
A long time because I did my bachelor's in social work and that took me like 5 years. And then I didn't go back to school for like 5 to 6 years or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then my master's program was 2 years. I did an advanced standing. No, 1 year. I did an advanced standing program, which is basically 2 years crunched into one.
Oh, wow.
Which if I could go back, I would not
do that.
I'd do the 2 year because it was rough for me.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And then, and while I was in grad school, that's when I got diagnosed with like ADHD. And before that, I had no idea,
Oh, so you have ADHD?
Yeah. And so that's when I kind of realized like, oh, this is why school has always been so hard.
Right.
And a bunch of other things in my life.
That's why you want the physical interaction too then probably, huh?
Yeah. And then, a lot of more things started making sense. Because at first I was like, there's no way, dude. And then, you start looking back on stuff and I was like, oh gosh, and like you said, that's why I do like being more in person and, and so.
So how, a question. So
yeah.
when you're listening to a client of yours and you're just, listening to them, with your ADHD, I don't know how bad it is, right? I know some people have it worse than others and some people, it's not that bad. How do you deal with keep maintaining yourself focused to your client? How do you do that with yourself?
I do a few different little things, especially right now because I'm not medicated. So it is a little bit of a challenge in that sense. But like right now, I'm playing with my ring.
Right.
Like I'm bouncing my leg.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of that kind of physical stimulation stuff. Like my chair has the little swivel thing,
okay, yeah.
So I swivel back and forth in that so much.
Does your client ever go hey dude,
I'll bring it up to them, I'll mention it if I see that they notice or even if I notice oh crap, I'm getting really fidgety.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up to them kind of thing and they're like, oh no, you're fine, So I'll make sure, and if it is then I have a little basket of fidget toy kind of thing, and so they're for my clients, but they end up mostly being for me, because I have them there and I'll tell them every once in a while if I see them looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, you can take whatever out, but it ends up being more for me. I'll take something smaller and just kind of mess with that.
Oh, okay.
But then I'll be fine for a bit, or I'll start moving my hands a lot too when I'm talking, So I do that or a lot of different things. And a lot of it too is that I've gotten better at just pulling myself back into the conversation, reeling myself back. So when I do notice, if my mind does drift away, I'm like, oh no,
get back in the moment.
Yeah. Nice. A lot of grounding stuff back in the moment. And so, and it's a struggle, but I guess that's kind of why now when I'm not in a session, I do kind of let my mind wander a bit more.
Where does it go?
A lot of places, dude.
Does it?
Yeah.
With people who have ADHD, where they're just when they think about things, it's not one thing in specific, but it's 10 different things at once.
Yeah, I can't speak for everyone.
Right.
Like you said earlier, it is a spectrum too.
Yeah.
So some people might not deal with that as much because there's also different types of ADHD.
Right.
You can have more the inattentive type, which is more in your mind when you your mind does wander more, that hyperactivity is in your mind. And then there's the, what's it called? Hyperactive and impulsive.
That's more physical.
Yeah, it's more physical, and those two get clumped together sometimes, on paperwork and stuff. But they're kind of separate. The hyperactive is more the physical fidgety stuff, you know.
Right. My brother has more of that.
Yeah.
My younger brother has excuse me, he has the more hyperactive type of
Yeah, you're more
ADHD.
physical. Yeah, the little kind of motor or whatever is like in your body versus in your mind, and then the impulsive, like, you know, you're just being way
out there.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, you do and say things usually without really thinking about stuff as much. You know, like, you know, you're more impulsive, or, you know, maybe you'll do more riskier things, or, you know, you won't think things all the way through, and then later you'll be like, oh crap, like,
I should have thought about that.
yeah, you know, or like, I didn't think that all the way through, you know. Yeah, and then there's a combined type where you can have a little bit of everything, you know.
Right.
And so, but like, I've told some of my clients, like, the way sometimes I like to explain it's like, you know, and then sometimes like I'll have my laptop and be like, and I'll show them like kind of like this, how I have a bunch of tabs open. Sometimes it feels like I have a bunch of tabs open in my mind, and there's like a sound going on sometimes in one of them, and I can never find it. So I just kind of at this point just let whatever play. Like right now I don't have anything playing in my mind, but it's not uncommon for me to have like a song or something in, like on loop for hours in the back of my mind, and like sometimes I'll pay attention to it, other times I'm like whatever, and then it's like I'm trying to do all these different tasks at once, you know, and sometimes you like click on something and then you get that little buffering command where it's like, you know, and you're like, come on dude, just do the thing, and you're just kind of sitting there like, it sucks, you know. And sometimes, you know, the more you try to do something, the more you kind of like shut down, and so it's, you know, it's
a lot of different
of different things, a lot of different stimuli, you know, sometimes, and sometimes it's not always like that. Sometimes I can feel like I can just do things, or sometimes I can feel like there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
And I just recently had someone kind of tell me where it's like, where it was like, you know, when I do take my medication, I feel like I get all these like inputs from people, and I can like respond to it right away. Like, you know, like this person said this thing, and it's like, ooh, this is what you say, you know, or like, oh, listen, you know. And then I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Cause sometimes like I'll kind of sit there and be like, wait, what do I do? Do I like talk, or do I, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And then like I kind of just get stuck in my own head, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna stand here now that I'm like, oh, this is kind of awkward, you know. So I'm like,
stand in silence.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, yeah, you know. And so that kind of made sense to me also, where it's like the different, where you can actually sort things out, because a lot of the times, like for me too, if I'm trying to do too many things at once and get overwhelming, then I'm like, well, I'm just not going to do anything then. I'm like, this is too much.
Gotcha.
Which, you know, and it's tough to explain too, because like unless you have it,
right, it's hard to understand, because it's such a it's such a mental type of thing, you know, that it's like it's
physical
like,
too sometimes, you know,
and physical. I feel like it's unless you have it, you don't know. Truly, you can try to understand, but like, okay, I'm picking up kind of what you're saying, and try to understand the best to my ability, or to your ability, but you won't really understand fully. It's like with Jackie, right? She can say, I feel, you know, tired, and I can try to understand how tired she feels, but I really won't understand how tired she feels, because she's carrying a baby, and I don't know how her body feels. Right. So it's kind of one of those things. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when you were in college, going through, you know, getting your counseling degree and your social work degree, what was one lesson or one thing that you picked up about mental health that you realized you didn't know about mental health, in a sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah. A lot. There's too much. I'd realized I didn't know like anything.
Where does mental health come from?
What do you mean?
Like, right now we're seeing this surge of mental health awareness, which I think is great. But where does like I know there's mental health that comes from the womb, right? You're born and you have some type of condition, right? And that can create some type of mental health issues, right? But then I know there's the mental health that comes from outside, right? With like parents.
Like where does it come? Mental like illness type thing? Is that what you mean more? Like, because I was gonna say like mental health. I'm like, well, that's just like,
that's broad.
Your health, like, because, you know, and it's
right, mental illness. That's
right, because it's like, you know, we always think of physical health, but then we keep like mental health separate, right? Which I think it should be more combined because it's all connected. It's all a unit, you know, like your brain affects what your body feels, or what your body feels, you know, sends a message up to your brain. Right. And so, you know, because trauma isn't just like a psychological thing, it's also a physiological thing where you can feel like physical responses to certain things. Like,
I had my therapist tell me that she broke her back, right? And she wasn't able to walk for a while, and then she told me that it was crazy because she's like, trauma doesn't necessarily come from abuse in the sense of like words or how you get treated. It can come from physical pain too, or physical injuries, where when she broke her back, when she was going back to physical therapy, it was very hard for her to feel secure in walking because of the trauma that she sustained through walking, breaking her back, you know? And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. And I thought about it more, and I was like, that's interesting, because that means that if I hurt my shoulder, let's say, I'm lifting a weight and I hurt my shoulder, I get, physical therapy on it, and I go back, and I'm still going to, my brain is still going to be back to the moment where I heard it. And it's going to cost me a lot of time and work to get that trauma worked through where I can actually lift the weight the way I'm supposed to.
Yeah. Because like kind of going back a little bit, well, I mean, it ties into what you were asking or saying right now about like where mental illnesses come from and stuff. There's not like a clear answer because it can come from different things. Like you said, genetic. A lot of it can be genetic, like I have ADHD. I'm not the first in my family to have it. Like if we were to go back, it's in the gene pool, right? And then anything else is like, it's there. So like, that's why like when you go to a doctor, they ask you like, hey, is there any history of like heart disease, this and that? Because it's like, if someone in your family has had it, doesn't mean you're going to have it, but you might have like a higher chance of getting it, or you might be more prone to it. And so like, so if you have like ADHD or bipolar or something, just any sort of thing, it could be because it's genetic, it's in the gene pool, like your baby that you're going to have, like there's already a bunch of genes in there, and it's just like whatever kind of gets picked out. It's like, that's what your baby's going to have, like, picking from that huge like pool of things. But it, like you also said, trauma can cause a lot of things too, because like you were just saying, it affects you on so many different levels. Like a trauma affects you on a genetic level as well. So like, even if you like, had some sort of mental illness or something condition already going on before, a traumatic event can like make that worse, or make you like have something new kind of pop up. Because like you said, like, your therapist hurt her back, or like you were saying with the shoulder, your body remembers those things too. Like new neural networks are kind of built from that too. So like, you'll hear people say like, they'll hear a certain sound or smell a certain thing, and then they're like, oh crap, like their mind kind of like takes them back to that, or like something will happen and you'll have that little like kind of like, ooh,
like crap. A trigger response.
Yeah. Because it's like a trauma, like a trigger response, right? Because even though you're not in that same situation, like your brain, your body has picked up all these signals. It's like, ooh, this is just like that situation. Yeah. And so it reacts, so you jump, or like you tighten up,
Right. And that's interesting that you say that. I read once, we're going to go a bit extreme here, guys, where this girl was raped when she was younger, right? And on the position that she was raped, right, if let's say it was missionary, and she got raped in that position through whoever it was, right? Years later, even though she went through therapy, went through, the process of trying to heal herself the best of her abilities, when she got married and tried to, have sex with her partner in that same position, it took her back to that moment, even though it was a completely different person, in different scenario, everything was different. It took her back because it was such a trigger response that she had, and that's crazy how that's why it's interesting to me about this topic in general, because it's insane to me that the mind it's so powerful that even though we are adults and we're, living in our present life, one thing like a smell, like you said, a memory, whatever, you're driving through and you see one tree that looks exactly how it looked when you had something happen to you, that can take you instantly back to that one moment that you had a trauma.
Yeah. Because like you were saying, yeah, it's like the, I mean, because yeah, trauma is so interesting. I'm getting more like into that, you know, like even in my practice, just because it's like you said, so much. Like, you know, one little thing can just again hit those like that neural network, and you're like you're back in, because your body's always like scanning for danger, basically.
Right.
You know, it's always looking out for stuff, or just like not even danger, but it's like, you know, like, is like Jackie in a good mood, you know, and she is, and it's like, oh cool, you know, like I can be more easygoing, you know. But if you notice something's up, it's like, oh, you know, something's up, like what, you know. So your body's like always doing those sorts of things, you know. Because you know, like it's your brain's like main function is to keep you alive, you know.
Right. And keep you protected.
Yeah, keeping you alive, protect. So that's why, you know, it doesn't really care how it does that, you know. So that's why, you know, like sometimes, you know, people get like super aggressive or defensive, you know, or they'll like shut down, or, you know, a response will happen, you know, because the brain's like, oh, that's the thing that's like kept us alive, you know, so we're going to do that kind of thing. Even if that thing isn't always like the best like way to cope with something, but your brain again is like, oh, this thing has kept me alive, I'm going to do it. Because even, you know, change is super hard for everybody, and like even for your brain, you know, your brain resists it because it's like, this is unfamiliar, I don't know if I'm going to live, you know, or something bad's going to happen, even if you know that like certain changes can be a good thing for you, you know. But that's like, you know, why like making habits is hard too, because like it's different. You're something different, you know, so you got to like adjust to it and stuff. And you know, everyone's different and stuff, but you know, it's again, you know, like it's all tied together, so it is, you know, it's very interesting.
With dealing with trauma, do you think a lot of how you deal with trauma, or you know, certain mental illnesses, do you think how you deal with that comes from how you are raised in the home? You know how some people are like pretty good at dealing with, let's say, stress or some, I don't know, or nerves, right?
Right.
And it can be because maybe they learn through their parents, right? Or through grandma or grandpa. And then there's some people who have that same type of, you know, stress or stuff like that, but they're like the worst at dealing with it. You know, they don't know how to.
Right.
Do you think teaching your kids is a huge fundamental in how you deal with trauma or stress or PTSD, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like you said, kids learn so much from their parents. Like by the time they're, I can't remember how old, like super young, like toddlers, they learn like a bunch of crap from their parents already, you know, just from just like even seeing, modeling things, you know. So like, yeah, kids pick up a lot, you know. They're like always paying attention. Like they pick up on more stuff than we like to give them credit for, you know. Because like you said, like if they are like in a more, because like kind of going back really quickly with trauma, a lot of it is like it's feeling unsafe, you know, like something has happened so strong that like made you feel so unsafe that like a new like traumatic response or like trigger like comes from that. Like it's affected you to such a degree that like something about you kind of changes, where it's like physically, you know, mentally or something, like, you know, like, and trauma can be like such a huge, like broad thing, you know, like you said, physical thing. Like, you know, if you're a little kid and a bunch of like your whole class laughs at you, that make you be like, oh crap, I'm embarrassed. Maybe my ideas all suck or whatever. You know, so like it changes you to some degree, where you start like usually having like a negative idea about yourself, and if you keep feeding into that, you know, idea, then it starts like sticking. So it's really interesting how like trauma can like change you on a genetic level, but because like, you know, like with the kids, if they grow up in a house that's like less secure, I guess, or less safe, you know, or like, you know, parents, maybe they don't know how to regulate their emotions as well. So like every little thing can send them off. You know, a kid's not going to feel safe in that, right? So, you know, they're going to see how like, oh, this is how my parent, you know, responds to like these things. So that's how I'm going to learn, or that's how I'm going to do it, you know. And like they don't like tell themselves that, but like subconsciously it's like, oh, okay, this thing's happening, dad freaks out, and it's like, you know. And so like and that can like come out when they're older, or like when they're young too, like, you know. because there's no like, so like, yeah, so like definitely for kids, that safe environment, that safety, that like getting love and attention is really crucial, because like even if like, kids aren't getting abused or something, but like parents aren't really around, or they don't really give them some sort of attention or affection, that can be a way of like neglect or rejection, because they're not like getting like that security they need, they're not learning how to like make a bond with someone, or how to even interact, like like, because as a parent you're never going to get everything right, but like if you end up yelling at your kid, if you go back later like, hey, like, sorry I did that wasn't right, I'll work on that kind of thing, your kid learns like, oh, okay, cool, like I can make a mistake and learn from it, kind of thing, or like I can be responsible, or this and that, or like even just learn how to apologize to people, because like if something,
how important is that, learning how to apologize?
Very, because like
there's some people that don't know how to apologize,
because they probably have never been taught how to like make an apology, or no one has really maybe apologized to them, like often,
they carry that resentment,
so there could be a lot of resentment, or like it hasn't been like consistent, so maybe they do know how, but they struggle with it because like apologizing is admitting that you're wrong, or maybe you have to be vulnerable, and that feels really weird to them, so like I don't want to feel that, or so it's like a huge like, there's so much that goes into it, and that's why like makes counseling sometimes very interesting, where it's like it could be this or it could be that, and they're like there's so many different things you got to look into, and so like so many things to consider. So sometimes I end up just telling clients like, well, it could be that or this, and that's why I'm like, we'll tell a lot of people to practice like what's like called mindfulness, or just like being more aware of like what are your reactions like in these certain situations, like when you're getting anxious, it's like, what does that even feel like for you? Like what kind of body sensations are you having, what kind of emotions, what's like your kind of train of thought in the time, what are the things that are setting you off, like what do you do? And I know it's a lot that I ask them, but it's like, starting paying attention to like how you react can like start telling you a lot of like, oh, like this is why, or like these are the things that make me feel this way, like what can I do about it, or is there something that I could be doing on my end, or like that just gives you a good idea of like what you can do. I want to ask you just to close on the topic about like the kids and growing up in a safe environment, if you're a parent who doesn't really, who maybe doesn't have the funds or the access to go to therapy and learn how to be more affectionate towards your kid, or how to deal with your emotions and not lash out so often at home, what can a parent do alone, right? Not go to someone, but alone. What can someone do alone to better the situation at home with their kids? Yeah, and I like that you brought that up of like if they don't have the funds to go to therapy, because like as much as I do, like therapy, and I'm in the field, and I've been telling more people like, hey, you should give it a try, I am aware that it's still not accessible to everyone, which sucks. Like I definitely feel like it should be something that should be more, like, especially with the surplus of it right now. Yeah, especially like grown. What has kind of gone on, with like, everyone had to go through the whole COVID lockdown and stuff, like, and that's kind of gave more of a spike, like you said, to like the whole mental health kind of trend stuff, rightfully so, because like a lot of people realize a lot of stuff about themselves in that time, because like before that everything was on the go, and so like once you had to like stop and be like, oh crap, like I can't just sit still, like there's too much going on, but like so if you can't do that, like it depends, I guess, because like there's there's areas that do offer maybe like some more community like services, maybe like where they do offer maybe like a couple of workshops or classes or some sort of kind of thing, but that depends, so I mean, the internet right now can be a pretty good tool for stuff, like the thing with that, I would just say just kind of just check where the kind of source from, like because like I sometimes will have clients come in like, hey, I saw this thing on TikTok, like kind of want to get your thoughts, And, you know, because there is a lot of good stuff on there, and there is some stuff on there where you're kind of like, like, I don't know if, like,
Right.
it makes sense, but, like, I don't know about all of it, you know. So, like, with that, I would just, like, you know, I always, like, try to see, like, you know, more of, like, people that are, like, therapists or, like, psychologists or, like, some sort of, like, kind of organizations, just so I know that that information usually tends to be a little more credible, or, like, you know, they got, like, their citations, you know, so you can look into it yourself if you want to, or have, like, some sort of link. But, like, you know, like, there's, like, on the internet you can get on and find stuff now, like, even
research papers,
or, like, you know, there's, like, more videos of, like, you know, how to, like, deal with your emotion stuff. And, you know, not to say that all that stuff replaces therapy in itself, like, but it could be, like, just a good kind of just starting point, you know, like, because
a good coping tool.
Yeah, just even learn some things here and there, like, if you can't make it into, like, see someone. Because, like, you know, like, one thing that I see all the time is, like, you know, people put stuff like, this is my therapy, you know, like going to the gym, or, you know, like, when I go get my nails done, this is my therapy, you know. And I'm not, you know, bringing this up to talk badly on anyone or anything, you know, but it's just that, like, all those things can be therapeutic, but, like, it doesn't replace, like, actual therapy itself, you know, because, like,
and
in that setting, you're with someone that's, like, you know, kind of more trained in that, you know. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good.
No, but I was just gonna touch in that point of, like, the outlets, right, that people use for therapy in a sense, right? Like going to the gym and posting, this is my gym, or this is my therapy.
Right.
And I used to believe that, and I used to think like that until I got into therapy, and I realized that
you're only getting, like, so much, like, by just going to the gym, you know.
Yeah, and it's not, and it's that, but it's also, like, me going to the gym doesn't mean I'm actually gonna think about what I'm feeling and feel those emotions and then let them out. It's me, you know, getting maybe anger out or aggression out, or for me at least in my own self, it's doing that. So it is a great, you know, outlet, and I do want that because, like you said, my physical health connects to my mental health, and my mental health connects to my physical health. So if I'm feeling good and I like how I look and things like that, obviously it's gonna have a huge plus towards my mental health, right?
Right.
But I also need to keep in mind that just because I go to the gym and that's an outlet, that's not gonna cure all the problems and all the trauma that I have been carrying for the past however many years, you know, and that I need to learn how to do mental work, right? Like mental workshops in a sense, to deal with my emotions, right?
Right.
And you do that through certain tools, you know. I don't know what you recommend, and I want to kind of talk to you about that in a bit. It's kind of some of the recommendations, you know, that if you can talk about this, right? That you give to your clients. But some of the things I do, for example, is, you know, I wrote the other day, and I felt amazing. I haven't written in a long time, so I just wrote, and then, you know, reading is a great thing for me because I can read and look up internally and then realize things and have realizations like, I don't like that about myself, or I don't like this, I don't like that, right? This morning, I didn't feel like getting up early. I watched a movie this morning, and that was like a great relaxation time for me, just letting myself feel the presence and feel enjoying the moment, you know, things like that. So that's my mental workshops in a sense. What do you recommend clients to do? Some easy things, you know, because those are pretty advanced in a sense.
Hold on, I'm just trying to.
There's a lot.
So kind of just to kind of touch on what you said, like just to kind of clarify again, that, like, if you go to the gym or go get your nails done or go do things for yourself, like, I'm not saying that's bad, like, it's awesome, you should. But like you said, it doesn't, like, cover everything, you know. And just with that same kind of statement, you know, like, going to therapy doesn't mean you're going to fix everything too, unless you're willing to put in the work too. Because I tell my clients too, it's like, you know, this is only an hour out of your week, right? Like, I'm here to support you in any way that I can, and I'm here to talk about stuff and process stuff and you know, teach you skills or learn stuff together, you know, whatever it is that we need to do that day. But it's like, that's still only an hour of your week, you know. So it's like, you're gonna have to take that stuff, whatever we talk about, or whatever we do, you know, and then like work on it yourself, you know, and because it's like, as soon as you walk out that door, it's like, I'm not going to be following you and be like, hey, mate, remember that thing you were talking about?
Right.
Like, you know, it's like, because, you know, to be honest, I don't want to do that either. Because, like, you're an adult. Like, you should,
Right.
you know, or I think, like, you know, if you're coming in, like, I don't know, like, I get it too. Like, everyone's in different places too. But it's like, I'm not going to be like, you know,
yeah,
like,
you're not going to
over
be
somebody's
the guardian.
shoulder. Yeah. Because, like, again, like I tell them, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you, you know. But a lot of the times it's like, we're the ones kind of holding ourselves back too, you know, to a certain degree, because like
right, and the distractions that come with that, you know, because I've realized that sometimes when you do, this happens, guys, all the time. I'm sure you can account to this. You go to therapy, you spend an hour, you talk what happened the week before, right, or what you're feeling that day. Cool. The therapist, you know, yourself, or in my case, my therapist, will give you a set of things to do during the week to help you deal with what you're going through, right? So let's say you or my therapist says, "Hey, Brandon, you need to write right after this or right during this week, and just write out what you feel, you know, your thought process, whatnot. But make sure you write, you know." And it's Tuesday. Wednesday comes along, got busy, couldn't do it. Thursday comes along, got busy, didn't do it. Friday comes along, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends, didn't do it. Saturday comes along, gonna hang out with friends, didn't do it. Sunday comes along, oh, I hung out with my family, I just didn't do it. Monday comes along, had to wake up for work, start the week. And then Tuesday, did you write? No. So it's like, where's the distractions that you have around have a huge play on how accountable you are.
Yeah, distractions, and you know, like, and I don't ever get on like my clients if they don't like follow through with stuff like that, you know, like things like that, where it's like, okay, cool, you know, like I get it, things happen, you know. I guess if it's like something that they want to like keep bringing up, but then like, you know, keep putting it off, and it's like, okay, well, what's kind of going on? Like, you know, we keep
there's
bringing
something
it up,
deeper there.
Right, we keep avoiding. I get it. Like, there is life distractions and stuff, you know. But it's like, is it maybe you subconsciously avoiding it, or are you avoiding it on purpose? And you know, and finding any and every little thing to do before, you know, because if that's the thing, it's like maybe there's something deeper going on, you know. Because then, like, I like what you said that, because I mean, I do a lot of like talk therapy where you just talk about stuff, but now that I'm getting more into the trauma stuff, it's like you kind of come in and do more like processing, and like you kind of get through things like way quicker, and like when you do, there is some benefit to that, because sometimes I've done like, you know, some processing like trauma stuff, you know, like EMDR stuff with some clients, and then like you kind of notice the shifts a little faster.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, you know. But what was the question you asked me before this? Because I kind of like lost my train of thought.
Good, bro. I think I even forgot myself. No, I was asking you something along the lines of.
Oh wait, before that was like, what do you recommend for people?
Yes, what do you recommend to start?
I mean, self-awareness is always a good start, because it's like, if you're not really self-aware of what's going on, then you might not know that there's like a problem going on, you know, or or just you know, you'll just be oblivious to whatever, or you'll just be like, I just feel like crap all the time, I don't know why. And if you're not like really taking the time to start like thinking like, okay, I feel like crap, or I'm always anxious, you know, how come I'm always anxious, you know?
There's a person, I'm not gonna say how I know this person, but Jackie knows this person too. Point is, this person every morning says, whenever we get the chance to be around this person, says, I'm tired. Every morning. Hey, how are you doing today? You know, I always go into work saying, hey, how are you doing? You know, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And the person responds to me, I'm tired. When they say that every morning, is that a sign of some emotional things going on? Or is it truly that the person is just tired?
It could be. Like, I don't know the person, so I can't say, you know, but it could be a mix of both, or maybe they are emotionally tired, you know, and because, like, again, it's all connected, you know, so, like, if you're not, like, getting as much sleep, you know, and that's, like, I guess another good, like, essential stuff, you know, it's, like, making sure you're getting enough sleep, you know, making sure you're eating enough, making sure you're, like, hydrated enough, you know, like, because, like, if you're not, like, sleeping enough, you know, that, like, throws off everything in your brain, you know, like, your brain isn't, like, resting enough, you know, So like that can like heighten like certain symptoms, you know, like for ADHD, like if you're already kind of like maybe forgetful or like, you know, like, or like more emotional, because like, you know, like with ADHD you can feel like emotions more intensely, you know, or like, you know, it just might heighten some of those symptoms, you know, or if like, you know, any other kind of thing, like, you know, it just makes things harder. You might just be more irritable, you know, or like, you know, and if you're not like in tune with yourself, like self-aware, then you're just kind of like, why am I just like always moody? Or, you know, you might not even know, right? And then, or, you know, they might be physically tired, like they are just up all the time, you know, or they can't go to bed for, you know, so that's why I'm like,
it just depends.
Depends,
it
you
could
know,
be
like,
a lot of different
you know,
things.
I'd have to talk to the person, be like, you know, what
Yeah.
kind of going on, or, you know, so like, you know, like self-awareness, mindfulness is also a thing, you know, where it's like, it's kind of hard to explain off the top of my head. But it is like
Is
a lot of
mindfulness
checking in
like,
with yourself.
like thinking and being like, okay, how do I feel right now?
Yeah.
And then,
what am I feeling right now, kind of thing.
Do I feel anxious? Am I nervous? Am I scared? Am I sad? Am I happy? And then going about it. You know, if I feel sad, then ask yourself, okay, why do I feel sad?
Yeah, because like if you go like on YouTube and type in like mindfulness, like one of the first things that pops up is like, like mindfulness, like meditation, you know, and that's like guided meditation to go through like checking in with yourself. How's your body feel? What's going through your head? And you don't necessarily have to meditate to do mindfulness. It could be just a little quick, like, okay, like where am I at? Like, have I ate? Yeah, I have. Okay, cool. So why do I feel like crap? You know, or like, am I anxious? Like, do I have everything that I need to? You know, or am I running late for something? Is, you know, just checking in with yourself. Like, you know, how am I tensed up? You know, so it can be simple things like that. You know, and there's like a bunch of different little strategies you can, like body scans, I think, stuff like that. You know, so mindfulness. Movement's really important too, you know.
Does physical hardship in the sense of like having you know, if you're capable, right? Sometimes the person has a broken leg and can't do like a hard workout at the gym, right? Or sometimes the most you can do is have a walk. But doing something physical, right? Something that's physically hard, right? Does that have a huge play in how you and how your mind, you know, works in a sense? Because I've heard this, right, with the saying of like, people need to do something physical on a daily basis, whether it's a walk, a run, a hard, you know, gym workout. They need something physical in order for them to kind of, you know, because if you're just laying down in bed the whole day, then that's a different type of deal, right? So how much does physical exertion play in your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, physical movement is important. Like even if it's just like a little walk every day, or some sort of like stretching, even, you know, or even yoga. Like pace. Yeah, yoga is really awesome because that ties in a lot of like mindfulness and breathing too.
Wow.
Even like something as simple as like pacing back and forth, like you said, like if you can't like do a workout, or if you can't walk or this and that, like pacing back and forth, getting some push-ups. Because like, you know, like you said, if you're just sitting in bed all day, or laying in bed all day, or just sitting on the couch all day, or really stagnant, you know, like physically, like your body start, you know, like things start happening. But also if you pay attention to like your mindset, if you're just sitting all day, every day, just in one spot, you're not getting up and moving, like your mind also starts kind of like, you know, just feeling the effects of that, you know. So yeah, like you said, getting up and doing movement is important. To the degree of like the intensity, like I'm sure that's a factor. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I know the exact kind of.
I think it depends on the person, you know.
The person too, you know, because like even just going for walks every day can be enough to just get that little movement in. You know, even just to kind of get your mind kind of going, because sometimes, you know, like if you've been sitting for a while, it's just helpful to just get up and walk around. Like it might not entirely change how you feel, but it like kind of gets things going in your body, and sometimes can give you like a little different perspective of things, kind of like, you know, just like, you know, like if you ever just find yourself just laying in bed for long periods, long periods of time, like just getting up and just moving around for a few minutes can like help a little bit, you know, like, yeah, you might still feel, you know, down or whatever, but like it can give you a little bit, tiny bit of a boost because like even with, you know, physical movement, you know, you got all those like chemicals in your body that are produced, you know, so that's why like, you know, like the physical movement, like, you know, like it's my way of giving myself like little dopamine boosts kind of thing, so I can like stay focused, you know. So that's why like little movements are like, you know, can be really helpful, like you said. And so like so if you are doing like longer workouts, like those can help you feel better, you know, like because like you said earlier, like if you know you're feeling good and you're like, oh, I like my progress or I'm feeling accomplished, then it's gonna like help you feel better. But like, you know, like you don't have to be a bodybuilder to like, feel better either.
I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make. It's like when they think about like working out, that there's that stigma of like fucking 6-month diet and shredded and abs and this and that. When in reality, I think it varies between people, right? Every person is different. So my goal of working out can and more than likely will be completely different from your goal or your mindset on working out, right? For me, it might be going on a walk to the river for 30 minutes or walking around my apartment complex, and that's my workout for the day, and I feel good about that. Yeah. Where yours can be, I'm gonna hit the gym for 2 hours, fucking, you know, pre-workout up my ass and just do it. I mean, not literally pre-workout up my ass, but you know what I'm saying? Pre-workout to the blood vessels, you know? And just get my fucking pumping and come home and just, you know, be super aggressive, where if you don't eat chicken, then you're going to beat someone up. Yeah. Right?
That I would say that's more intense. Like if you're going to physically assault people, I'm like, you know, maybe we should talk about stuff, you know, because there's a lot going on there, I think.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. Maybe not a lot, but like you're wanting to hurt people. Sorry,
Yeah, no,
But you're right, with that. Like, and just want to add really quickly that like the gym is great, you know, but it's not the end all be all either, you know. Like, again, it's not going to solve everything because like if you go, like you were just saying, I know that's an exaggerated example, but like, you go to the gym, you get your workout, but if you still like can't cope with things, like I don't have my chicken, I'm going to punch somebody, like, you're going to get in a lot of trouble, you know. So it's like maybe you go that's a good example that like the gym isn't the end all be all for everything, you know, because like you can't just go around punching people, you know.
For chicken.
Exactly, especially But so what were you saying?
I was gonna ask you. So I've heard that there's a difference between therapy and counseling, and I'm gonna give you my definition from what I've heard, right, and then you kind of just guide me to what if I'm off or right. Sure. So I've heard that. Therapy is the practice of looking more inside of what you're going through, right? If on a trauma, for example, looking internally and seeing what that trauma is and then how to cope with that trauma and essentially work from the inside out. Counseling, I've heard, is more of, you know, not so much looking internally, but looking externally and then working on how you can deal with those factors externally, right? So if you have a trigger response towards, let's say, what's a good example? Let's say me and Jackie are getting in a fight, right? And she says something that triggers me, that brings me back to something that happened in my childhood. Counseling, what would help me would be how to walk away from that situation in that moment and then come back. Whereas in therapy, it's more internally and would be processing more internally in a sense. So am I off? Am I on or off in those definitions?
Yeah, I mean, like, because I mean,
what's your definition of or the differences?
Honestly, like, I don't really get too hung up on those two, because like, a lot of places are like called counseling clinics or counseling, you know, but like, you know, they'll refer to their people as like counselors, clinicians, therapists, you know. I don't really get hung up on the technicality of it, I guess, you know. And if I'm being honest, like I don't know like the actual like
definitions of
textbook definitions of each, you know, but what you said, like, it does sound like that. But honestly, you end up doing a little bit of both. I think, you know, well, some people, I think, you know, because there are counselors and therapists that have more of like their niches,
Right.
like if you're like a trauma therapist, you are going to be doing more of like the therapy
trauma
work, where you are like more addressing like the inner work, because you're stuff in a way, because you're addressing that like the trauma itself, and like the responses it makes you have, like the thoughts it makes you have about yourself, and like what you want to replace it with, like the thoughts you want to replace it with, and letting go of that like traumatic response, and then but then you might have sessions where you are just kind of talking more of like, okay, yeah, so you had that argument, like how did it go, or like did you try this out, or what did you notice in the moment, or like is this the only person that you have that response to, with, or like or like are you like that with everyone? So like you kind of end up doing a little both, and then like, and
do you think it varies between each let's call them clinicians, right? Both counselor and therapist. Do you think it varies between each clinician on how they go about their work? So let's say you're a counselor, right? Let's say on paper you're a counselor, right? But in your work, you do 50% counseling, 50% therapy, and you kind of mesh them both together. Do you think that's how it is for every clinician? It kind of varies on how they want to practice their skill?
It varies, because like it's it varies, because like like you just said, every person has their way of kind of doing things, you know. Like we're all working off of like general information, or like science-based
Info.
evidence, so we're not just like making stuff up, like there's like a board and stuff, that like regulations stuff that we have to follow, but it's like how you take that and apply it in your sessions and stuff, or how you go about explaining things, or doing like certain like the actual work kind of stuff. It varies different from person to person, like like it's because it is like therapy counseling, it is very science based, like like when you're doing like say EMDR.
What's that one with the I one?
EMDR.
EMDR?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. EMDR.
Cool.
Yeah. I barely got trained in that this year,
You want to do one on me right now? Not on the clock? He's not on the clock.
I don't know.
How does it work?
You're gonna get me.
No, we won't do it. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah,
but how does explain briefly, how does that work, the EMDR?
Oh man, dude, I don't know if I can do that briefly.
So just with the eye, I have a book. She bought me a book, right, babe? And I haven't read it, but I've been wanting to read it, because I'm like, it's a different type of therapy than talking or
shoot, what was I saying before?
You're talking about how the people vary, clinicians vary.
Oh yeah. Like I was gonna say with that, like I guess because it is very science based, but then there's also an aspect to it where it's kind of like an art in a way. Yeah. Because like with EMDR, like I went to that and I was in a room full of other therapists, counselors, and they call us therapists there. Yeah, I just realized that. So there's that, and so they taught us like how to do it, and like the basics behind it and all that. But then it's a lot of like, hey, now how you take it and apply it, like, is going to vary from person to person. Even when we had to like practice on ourselves, like we had a script.
It's like a personal touch, right?
Yeah, but you add your own personal touch to it, your own like kind of little personal flair to it. Like you're reading the script, and there was times where I would go straight word for word, but there's times where I'm like, no, throw in my little, my own words or my own spin, or like how I delivered it even. And so like there is your own personal touch where it kind of becomes more of an art. That's why like I'll tell clients to like if you don't feel like it's a good connection, like, hey, that's fine, like my feelings will get hurt, I just hope that you find, someone that you do feel like you connect with, or you do feel safe with, and that it more lines up to what you want to do,
I like what you're saying. I really do, because I've heard many stories where people go to therapy or counseling, right? And they try it for one day, maybe a week or 2 weeks, right? Which is 2-3 days. And then they're like, they leave, and they're like, it didn't work out for me. I didn't like it. In my mind, when I hear that, it's like, no, maybe it was the person who you went to that you didn't have a connection with. You didn't feel safe or comfortable. Right. And so maybe it's just switching out people,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't think a lot of people think about it that way. They
Right.
think of it as like, I'm just wasting my time
Right.
and my money, and this doesn't work.
Right.
And that could come from, you know, the protective aspect of the human body, where
Yeah.
you're trying to
that too.
protect yourself from letting someone come in
Yeah.
and take that mask off, right?
Yeah.
That happened to me with my therapist. Is at first I was like, there's
Hit
no
the nerve,
way.
and you're like,
Yeah.
no, dude.
There's no way. I
Yeah.
was like, I went in there, I straight up lied. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way you're gonna figure out what's going on with me, because I'm
Yeah.
good, I'm fine, right? Then she took the mask off
Mm-hmm.
slowly, and I noticed that she was good at her job, because it made me cry, right? And it made me cry in the first session.
Love making
Yeah.
clients cry.
And she made me cry in the first session, and I was like, and it wasn't like
Yeah.
it's weird because I didn't feel embarrassed
Right.
or ashamed for crying in front
Sounds like
of
a good fit, yeah.
her. It
Yeah.
was just like a relief.
Yeah.
I finally was able to let myself cry
Right.
without feeling some type of way about what's gonna happen afterwards.
Hell yeah, dude.
You know, so that's how I knew.
I love a good cry.
But dude, I've had many cries where I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I just needed that.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
sure.
but yeah, I want to ask you, what do you think about the people who, I know we go all over the place.
I was like, I have like 3 things that I in my
Go
mind
ahead.
where I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna answer those.
Yeah, say them. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just really quickly, like you said, with the clients, you know, or, you know, you go to one person, it's like, I didn't really like that. And, you know, like I think there's different factors for it. Like you said, for one, it's not accessible to everyone. And then like a lot of places have huge wait lists too. So it can be a while
Right.
before you get in. So I get it too. Sometimes like with people get discouraged, you know, and sometimes, like you said, it is like that response where like, you know, I've had it too, where I've maybe asked something and I know I hit something, or
Right.
maybe I pushed a little too far sometimes, where it's like, I know you're kind of lying, you know, or you're like,
Yeah.
you're evading my question. I'm
You're
like,
going around
okay,
the bush,
like,
man.
yeah. And it's like, okay, cool, you know, but like you still, you know, and that depends person to person. Like with a newer client, I'm not going to be like super, like, cause you get to know the person too. And you kind of get to know like, oh, okay, this person, like they want me to be more like kind of pushy kind of thing. Or others, it's like, let me kind of take a more gentle approach to that kind of thing, you know?
Interesting.
But that also depends with person. And then, you know, like people do have come in and told me they have had bad experiences, you know, with other clinicians, you know, because it's like any other job, like it happens. Not everyone out there is
the best
or not. And that's not to talk crap on anyone or anything. Cause like, you know, I'm sure I have clients where like I struggle with being late sometimes too, like in the morning. So
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them can be like, this dude's like always late, you know,
Yeah.
in the mornings or like stuff. So, you know, I'm not going to say that I've had like a flawless record either. Cause I've, you know,
Right. No
so
one's
like,
perfect. At the end
yeah.
of the day, a therapist or a clinician or a counselor or, you know,
Right.
a doctor even, they're still humans.
Yeah.
You know, and humans are not perfect.
Right.
There's just because, you know,
Right.
you are a counselor doesn't mean you're a perfect human being.
Oh, no,
you
I
still have your
my
faults,
I
and
still
you still
have my things to work
you
through.
know, and you have your things.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To work through. So you can't, as a patient, you can't be so demanding of your therapist. You know, of course, there's a certain level of respect, right?
Right.
But you can't be so demanding or so,
Right.
you know, aggressive towards them in a sense, right? Because they're still humans. You
Right.
still have to understand that.
I tell them
You know?
sometimes where it's like, just so you know, this is going to be a process most likely, you know, because, you know, it's like if I had a magic wand just to fix all your stuff, I would have done it by now, you know, like it'd be a one and done.
Yeah.
But
You'd be so rich.
right. But then it's not like that, you know, and sometimes you're not even aware of the things that are going on until you start getting in, like you said, you start feeling that relief, you start letting go of things, and then other things pop up, and then you start identifying things. You're like, oh, that's what's going on. Or
Right.
I didn't even know this connected to that, which, you know, kind of transitions to like, you know, I was going to say with EMDR, you know, with the eye thing. So it's short for eye movement desensitizing, and then I always forget the R.
Relief. Here, could you look at what EMDR stands for?
I always forget the R.
just to be
But
clear on that.
basically, it's like, so it's belief based, meaning that like the core of it is addressing those like negative beliefs that have been caused by like traumatic events.
Interesting.
So it's like
The R was reprogressing. Reprocessing.
reprocess. Yeah, reprocess. Yeah,
Repress.
cool. Awesome. Thank you. Reprocess. So because you do a lot of reprocessing in it. So basically, I'm trying to think where to start. I'm still trying to figure out like how to like explain it simple terms to people because it's huge, but it's basically kind of.
It's a fairly new therapy.
It's newer, yeah. Newer? It's been around for like I think 20 to 30ish years.
Okay,
Don't
pretty new.
On that. So it is still newer, but it has been, But it like takes a lot of. So like I said, it's belief based, right? So you're. Addressing those negative beliefs of like, I'm worthless, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm this and that, and then like I have this chart like where it has like where those negative beliefs like kind of start like from childhood. You can start having a negative belief of like I'm not safe as early as like when you're born.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like it's not like in your brain you're like I'm unsafe, but like subconsciously you don't feel safe already. Your body already doesn't feel safe. Like maybe there's complications at birth, and like, the baby like had to be put like in intensive care, or something. Like the body's gonna remember that. Like, hey, there was stuff going on. I have no idea, but it's like your body like knows too, like, oh crap, like I'm dying, or like, something's off, So like that belief of like I'm unsafe can start as early as that, and that's like not something that like you can control either, right? So there could be like something of that, but then like as you keep getting older, like things keep happening, reinforcing those. So the next thing you know, it's like I am unsafe or I am stupid, and that can cause a lot of anxiety and depression and stuff, So with like EMDR, what you're doing is like you're finding those negative beliefs, you're making the association of that with like the traumatic events of like when it started to, like as far back as you can go. You can also like process like positive moments too. It's not all just negative too. But like so you find that you identify like the negative belief. You identify like the traumatic event that you're going to be working with. You identify like an adaptive belief or a positive belief, like what you want to replace it with. So like instead of like I'm stupid, of like I'm smart, or I can learn despite this and this, or like I'm safer now kind of thing. And then like, so the whole thing with the finger moving is that, so when you're sleeping, like there's like the whole REM sleep, when your eyes doing the little darting back and forth. So like during that process, it's like your brain is processing like the events from your day, basically. So that's what's going on. And your brain, your body have like a natural way of healing from trauma. Yeah. But sometimes that trauma is too intense for your body and for your brain. So what your brain will do, like in those instances, like just kind of takes that trauma and puts it to the side. It's like, I'll get to this later kind of thing, and if that never gets addressed, it just kind of sits there. It still keeps affecting you. And if it keeps building up, if it keeps getting like cemented of like, I'm stupid or I'm worthless, it just keeps getting ingrained in you, So like, it's very hard for you to like not believe, like, you know. So someone's like, hey, like that was pretty good. Like you're smart. And then you're like, oh, no, not really,
Interesting how that works. Oh my goodness.
So like, it's like very like deep rooted, and if there's like physical sensations in there too, like it's very interesting. So like, with the eye movement, what you're doing is like, before that, like you kind of get people activated in a sense, like, because you're talking about those, like, either like that traumatic event or that negative belief, like, so it's on your mind, and then we're connecting it sometimes because there's different versions of it. Like if you're doing it unrestricted, which is like when you connect it to everything. So it's like the negative belief, the event, and it's like, do you feel that anywhere in your body too? Yeah. And it's like, oh, I feel like my chest tightening when we talk about this kind of thing.
Oh, okay. That's why there's the you're a good therapist, I guess, when you can catch that and be like, take a deep breath, breathe it out, like just breathe with me, and you'll breathe with your client and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're doing EMDR, like you don't do it in that sense because you're going to process it, Yeah. But like, like you like in session, if someone's getting anxious, then that's a good time to be like, all right, cool, let's work on some grounding stuff. But for some people, really quickly, like, because deep breathing. Oh, that's another thing. That's like that good advice for people. Work on their breathing, like deep breathing. And when I say deep breathing, it's really like filling up your lungs. That's why I said yoga can be really good because you're like really like taking in air. because like when you're taking deep breaths, when you think about it, it's like your body's taking deep breaths because it's safe.
Yeah.
Like when you're in danger, you're not taking big deep breaths. You're like have more shallow breaths,
Right.
because you're on edge, right? You're looking out for things. But when you're safe, you're able to take deep breaths, and that's, you trigger a bunch of like nerves in your body that let them know like, I'm safe,
Yeah.
So that's why like deep breathing is really awesome and really
Good.
essential, to just like keep you grounded and stable. But like for some people, that's not an option because, they've been through so many traumatic events or like the stuff they've gone through.
Yeah.
They don't feel safe like being in their body, or like they don't feel safe feeling relaxed.
Interesting.
So then from there, like, so for them, it wouldn't work with that. So then you just have to go like a different route and like address other areas or like, other areas of trauma,
But with
right.
anything else, I deal with that a lot where I feel shameful and guilt.
Okay.
All around.
And that's good that you bring that up because, I mean, really quickly with EMDR too, part of it is like when you're reprocessing stuff, that's where like the R comes from, on it. You're reprocessing those memories in a way so like they're still there. Like we're not deleting them from your mind,
right?
But we're just making it so they're there, but they don't affect you the way they were before. Like you can think about it if you want to, or it's like, hey, that happened to me. It sucked that it happened, but you know what? Like I finally have that, like let go of that. Like I finally don't have to think of myself that way or react a certain way because that relief is finally gone, so that's like, you're reprocessing it in a way so it's like it's still there, but it's not as like triggering as it was before. Like, I can live with it now, and with shame, I'm glad you brought that up because shame's not good for you.
Right, obviously.
Because, and I'll just quickly throw this out that there's shame and guilt. Shame is, they both feel bad, right?
Right.
But with shame, it's more of an internal thing where it's like, I'm a bad person.
Yeah. It's my fault.
My fault. I shouldn't have done, this and that. Where guilt, it's like you're separating of like yourself from the behavior, where it's like, I did a bad thing, or I messed up, or I did this and that, or because shame is more, it makes us believe lies about ourselves, right? Versus guilt, it can be a good way to like recenter and to cause change because it's like, oh, I did something bad. Right. I don't want to do that again, and so I'm gonna not do that again, or what can I do to not be like that, so from guilt you can like change and grow from with shame it's like, I'm a bad person, I'm this and that, I'm blah blah, I'm the worst, right. Blah blah blah. So then you just get stuck in this cycle. So it can lead to a lot of depression and a lot of just worse things if you're just
it can lead you down a bad road.
Because you're thinking bad things about yourself, and
your self-image is bad.
Probably just tanks too.
Your self-esteem, everything. What's our time?
An hour 27.
Oh geez, I really need to go pee, but
okay.
I have 2 more questions I want to ask you. I have 2 more questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
And then we'll end it with those 2 questions.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna go pee though. Okay. We'll be right back, guys. Let me go use the restroom. And 3. We're back, guys, from our little restroom break. I wanted to ask you 2 questions. The last 2 questions. The first one is, what do you think about the other methods of therapy that there are out there? For example, ayahuasca. For example, I know there's one you can go to clinics and they basically, get an IV. I forgot what it's called.
Like ketamine?
Ketamine.
I think they have a couple.
Around here?
This is around here. At least one for sure.
I should go. Ketamine. There's DMT, right? There's a lot of different type of methods that are not so much. They're not so.
Right.
They're more drug intake type of therapy methods than anything else. So what do you think about those? And have you had someone, or do you know of someone who has had that type of therapy?
I mean, I think I need to put it closer.
No, just face it up for you. There you go.
There. Is that good?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has its place. Yeah. Obviously. Like I've looked into some of that a little bit myself, like just kind of like if an article or something pops up of like, looked into it. But I can't say that I'm like super versed or knowledge in that.
Yep.
But like you said, I know that there are other benefits to it, you know.
Yeah.
Because like from what I know, like you could be very like with ayahuasca, I've heard that's very intense, you know, like very like self-aware and just like, you know, just what is it, like ego death or whatever kind of thing. That it's like a very like awakening experience for people.
Yeah.
And like I have heard of the ketamine stuff, you know. But like I said, I haven't looked into it a ton myself, but like I'm sure there's this place where like I'm a little interested in it as well, because I feel like there is room for it, you know. Like I've looked into this kind of, because I have like thrown around the idea of like possibly going back to kind of continue, you know, in education. I saw like there's this one program for like a experimental therapy intervention, something like that in psychology or something. I can't remember. So like I am definitely interested in it, but like I don't know anyone that's done it yet, you know.
Yeah. I was gonna do it.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna do so much of ketamine or ayahuasca, but I wanted to do mushrooms and use mushrooms as a form of therapy.
Right.
So, but because I ask people around, and I when I do something, I want to get informed before I do it. And when I asked someone about this, what they told me was like, I usually wouldn't recommend intaking any drug like ketamine or ayahuasca or mushrooms, because when someone tells me that, it basically is telling me that they what was it they don't, or I guess they don't know how to they don't know where their emotions are at in a sense, you know. And that's what the person told me is like, I wouldn't recommend until I know someone isn't capable of getting their emotions together.
Yeah, and that's why like I would, again, I don't know how like those I have heard that there is like places where they just like give you the ketamine to just leave you alone, which is like, why would you do that? You know, it's
I
like
would not feel safe around
that. It's like exactly like I feel like if you are gonna do those, it'd be like, you know, you use the drug or whatever, and then like you have like some sort of guided. Like, again, I don't know how it works, you know, but like because like you said, because like you bring up a good point that I was thinking about, you know, answering with right now, of the like I wouldn't recommend it from the start kind of thing.
Yep.
And I agree with that, because it's like if someone isn't like in tune with themselves, or like doesn't know where like their emotions are coming from, or don't know what's like all's going on, you know, they just know that they like, you know, feel bad or whatever.
Yep.
It might be overwhelming, you know, just especially if it's like it makes you feel everything all at once kind of thing, and because it's like I have heard like of some people where like, I can't remember who it was, maybe colleagues. I do have like some colleagues, like even the EMDR training, where somewhere like there is like, you know, like certain studies going off like EMDR with like, you know,
ketamine or something.
Yeah, like some sort of psychedelic or something. Because
interesting.
Again, there is like, again, you know, under like the right, like, you know, kind of guidelines or circumstance or whatever, you know, again, I don't know how those sessions go, but I'm sure it can be really beneficial, you know, to kind of, you know, get you to a certain place or process certain things, you know. Because like I said, I'm sure there is a benefit to it. But then, because with that too, it's like, you know, if you're strictly, because I have like talked to some people where it's like, yeah, you know, like if you heard of ayahuasca, it's cool, you know, if you take it. Yeah, like I'd be down for it, because like I feel like you could get me to stuff quicker, and it's like, no, awesome, that's dope, you know. But it's like kind of, you know, was also made me think too, you know, and I talked about it with the person where it's like, you know, like what's kind of the reason for wanting to do that, you know? Is it because like you kind of want to avoid all this stuff and just kind of get to it, like, you know, like you want just a quick fix kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or is it like, you know, like, because it's like, you know, I'm sure we could like have the same stuff, like realizations and, you know, same processing through just like regular therapy, you know, but it's like
it's a longer process too.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, you know, part of it, you know, was kind of like
Yeah.
Are you doing that to avoid stuff and you just kind of quick fix and get there like, cool, I'm done with everything?
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like the only
because
way
that might not be for everybody. You know, for some people, sure, but others, you know,
it could leave you broken.
right.
At the end.
So that's why, you know, it is kind of like I like what that person said, where it's like I don't know if I'd start with that right away. You know? Like I definitely would, you know, get to know the person first before it's like, yeah, okay, you seem resourced enough, grounded enough where it's like, or aware enough or whatever it is you need to do. Because again, I don't know how those sessions go, so I'm not an expert into that by any means. But I would like to think that there's some sort of like intake process before it's like, okay, yeah, this seems like it'd be a good fit for you, or like maybe we should wait off on that, or maybe this isn't the thing for you, kind of thing, you know.
I guess be careful because you know right now there's the ayahuasca, the ketamine, the DMT, those psychedelics are, and mushrooms too, are very they're gaining more popularity, right? Because of the good results that it's had. You know, there's been a lot of great work that's been done because of those psychedelics, and with people, even with veterans. I know ketamine and they deal with, you know, PTSD, and that's helped them, or DMT or ayahuasca, right, or mushrooms even. But for me, you know, just my personal opinion, I think that I would love to do those one of those drugs. I don't know which one, but not right now, just because I want to learn more. You know, for me, I want to learn more how far I can get by myself before I need something more like a drug, like one of those, right? For me to be able to open up in other aspects. So when this person told me that, I was like, okay, I gotta be honest with myself, you know. Is it me trying to get a quick fix, like you said, and not do the work, or is it me actually hitting a stoppage point in my abilities, and I actually need something far more, you know, advanced or whatever, to be able to figure out what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Or I guess like just where you're at too. Like, if you feel like you're at a place where like, yeah, I can do that and be okay, then, you know, who am I to tell you like, no, don't do that. You know.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, like for sure. Because like you said, the being honest with yourself, it's like, am I really just trying to avoid a bunch of stuff and just trying to get the quick fix, or like, am I at a place where like, yeah, this would be interesting, or like I'm really. Like, you know, I guess what's the kind of the reason behind it, like, you know, and, you know, everyone's different and stuff, and everyone has different experiences. So, and again, I'm not like super knowledgeable in like how that works.
No, me neither. So,
right. So, but I definitely do feel like, it's interesting. Like you said, there's more research being done on it, you know.
Yep.
And there would be more, but you know, they're just
a lot of legal.
a lot of legal issues, you know.
Legal issues.
So, but yeah, I mean, like if there is like I do know that there is like you said, there has been some good results from it. Yep. So like I'm not opposed to it. Like I'm curious about it too myself. I'm like,
I
how
would
effective could it be?
Do more research.
You know,
research the drugs to its full extent. That way, if it is, you know, a helpful way of therapy, that it's allowed, you know, that it should get legalized in its way, so that people can do it. Because I think a lot of people, you know, may been going to therapy for 10 years and not have found a way to better themselves. You know, they might have, you know, found a stoppage point, and they're like, I don't know where to go from here. Like, so if there's a different type of method, then great. Yeah. Last question I want to ask you though is, what do you think about those fake therapists online? You know how, because therapy is such a hot topic right now. It's such a trend in a sense, and there's such a surplus in it. I think it's amazing. You know, by all means, I think people should for sure check themselves out and work on themselves. But with that, there's, like we all know, there's a lot of money involved. You know, there's a lot of scammers, you know, involved, where they try to get some type of buck. A buck out of other people's, you know, pain and hurt, and so their need. They use that to their advantage. And I've seen it myself. There's a lot of people out there on the internet that give advice that I think to myself, I'm like, that's bullshit, dude. How are you gonna give that advice to someone like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid who, you know, who's really maybe going through something really intense, and you're just giving this advice out there like it's a fucking, you know, given. Like
Right.
it's the best advice out there.
Right.
So what do you think about that, and how should people stay away from
Yeah.
that?
Like you said, I definitely like that, mental health is being talked about more, and that, yeah, it's like there's more resources out there and stuff. I think that's great, because, like even just like a TikTok of like someone explaining like certain symptoms or something, like
Yep.
can be helpful just to like even get you like curious to be like, oh, like that kind of like relates. I wonder if I got something, because, I'm not saying like self-diagnose yourself off that, or anything. And a lot of like the professionals will put stuff in their like captions, like just a disclaimer, like this does not replace therapy. This is not like a client therapist like relationship, or like what I say is like kind of more general stuff, but like, which is like, like that's why with stuff like that, I'm like, if it gets you curious or gets you, curious, or like gets you thinking of like maybe I should check it out, then awesome, all for it, I'm all for that, because it's like you can take that stuff in, and then if it's like correct info, then yeah, awesome, you can build off that. If it sounds like, okay, well that's mostly true, but then here's where that's like not, or whatever.
Right.
But then I mean, I haven't seen, I guess maybe, well no, I have seen people will post stuff like psychology hacks, this and that. Some of the stuff you're like, it's not really a psychology hack,
Yeah.
Or it's like, well, that's just kind of like basic, you just Googled that and like kind of threw it on there, and with that, like I said earlier, I would like myself when I'm on like like Instagram or something, and I'm like looking at like like mental health related topics or stuff, things or whatever. I'll always just kind of like look at like the source to like the person, where like on their page like licensed therapist or trauma this and that. Because then it's like, oh, okay, cool, like I know that they have some sort of training, like
there's some type of experience,
right? Or they'll like link a source or something, or it's like, okay, cool, like they like, it's one thing to like look up the information, it's another to like actually apply it, or like know how to do it, because like I could look up videos on how to like, I don't know, like assemble like that little like this table right here. Doesn't mean I'm like a carpenter or anything, right? Like I would never say like, oh yeah, like I'm experienced, I can make all this kind of stuff, but like I know how to do like certain things, or I have certain knowledge about stuff, because like when you're in the field, like you learned a certain amount of like, you learn like general information or basic stuff or this and that, and a lot of it more is like you just being in the field, know, putting in those hours. Like even when you're in school, like they'll have you do practicums where you have to go to like an agency and like do like some sort of internship and put in hours kind of thing. So you've like, even before like going into like being a therapist, like I already had a bunch of experience like talking to people in like stressful situations, or like talking to people who are like really like pissed off, or like I've had people like swing at me and stuff, and so like going into it, like I already had this like, oh yeah, like this understanding of like, people coming in here are sometimes under a lot of distress, and that can look different for everyone. So I don't know, because like with that, like I'll see that stuff sometimes and then be like online and be like, yeah, that's not the greatest advice, or I could just tell it's like, okay, this person read something or has maybe gone, but I'm like, I can tell that they haven't because like I've seen like this, I saw this one kind of not influencer, but this person online where they put like, hey, I'm going to take this course of like CBT, which is another like therapy intervention, and it's like, I'm going to have like one-on-one sessions with people. And I was like, oh, good luck, like not in a bad way, but, and then like, sure enough, later on I saw like not like a week or two later, they stopped. And I saw comments like, hey, are you still, it's like, no, I just was too much. I'm like, yeah, because
it's not everyone can be a therapist.
Yeah, not like I was hoping for it to like fail, but I'm like, good luck, because it can be intense. Like, 'cause I saw just some of the stuff she like, everything can be changed just through your mindset. And I'm like, to a certain degree, but then like we just kind of said earlier, like if there's trauma involved, and
it goes way deeper than just the Google search.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing is, I'm not a therapist either by any means, but I know I've been a therapist
for
good 5 years, 6 years, and I read books about it, and not to say that that's going to give me a degree on it, but I have an understanding that can be a little bit far more deeper than a person who hasn't been in therapy for the time I've been, or you know, something like that, you know. So I'm not saying that I have the right to have clients and what, because I don't, right? But I can give someone a solid advice about something, you know, just because I've been through something like that, or know how to know certain tools to use in certain moments, and so maybe that can help someone, right? And so that's why I talk about it. But I know people, and I've seen it online too, who sometimes they just read something, they Google something, read it, that's what they used, and that's like the advice, you know, or like the mindset thing. It's all about no, it's not, dude. Like I've been, it's
a part of it.
Yeah, I've been told, like, it's like, you know, even if we go back to the gym, it's like just the mindset, you know. Yeah, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. It's like, no, bro, but it's not just that. There's more involved than just the mindset or the Google search or the gym will fix it all or the nails will fix it all. It's way farther than that, you know, when it comes to emotions. Because emotions, you know, even so much so that a lot of people think that anger is an emotion, which it is, but anger is masquerading a deeper emotion. Yeah,
it's like an indicator. Yeah,
it's something, you know,
and it's not all bad. Like anger in itself isn't bad,
right? And and so that's what I've seen. I'm like, and I don't get mad about it, because, you know, if you're trying to get a quick buck, dude, at the end of the day, it's not gonna last you very long, right? Because you're gonna hit a point where if you don't have the experience and you haven't been through, you know, certain things, and then you can only go so far with what you're trying. Excuse me, with what you're trying to do. You know, but I do think that a lot of people get caught up in that, and it's sad. Not sad to me, but it's maybe disappointing, right? Because I see people get caught up in that type of like rut, and and they don't get out of it. And I'm like, bro, like, that's what happens.
It's tough, yeah, for sure. Because like you said, like when I see stuff like that, like there's times where I'm like, it does make me like have like a negative reaction to it. I'm like, you're just trying to like misleading people, or you're just trying to take advantage of people and stuff, you know. But like you said, like if it is like for a quick buck, it's not gonna last, and you know, and you know, part of it too is like, you know, like you just kind of like to a certain degree, there's like not much you can do about it either. You know, you just kind of gotta like let it happen. It's like, you know, and people will find their way to someone or get the help they need if they want to, you know, or if they can, you know. But it is hard to, you know, like sometimes seeing that, just because it's like, man, like, because I mean, like I know what it's like on my, like, you know, when you're in that position, and you know, I work with people who like come in and they're just like, you know, like I said, they're distressed, but there's certain levels, you know. Some they come in and you're like, oh, okay, they look fine, you know. And then others come in and you're like, oh my gosh, like you
are broken.
I'm so sorry, you know, like you are, everything is just going against you right now. And so it's like, you know, and it's hard, but at certain same time, it's like, you know, I can't, and that's the thing, like I can't save anyone. I'm not saving anyone at all. I'm helping people like heal. I'm helping people like learn stuff about themselves, you know. So it's like, even just, you know, just being aware of that, like, you know, I can't save the world, you know, like, but I can help people. And that's like really what I try to do. And even with that, like, you know, because I could comment on those posts and stuff, but it's like,
it's you're not gaining anything.
It's not gonna maybe do some. And so sometimes it is just kind of picking your battles with that too, where it's like, okay, yeah, you know, because like sometimes you go in the comment section, you'll see people like calling it out and stuff. It's like, okay, I don't need to like, maybe I don't need to add to this, you know. And it's like, but it is like, I don't know, it is hard, but
it is what it is.
It is what it is, because again, it's one of those things where it's like I can try to do stuff about it, but there's so much that's out of my control in that, where it's like I'd rather redirect my time and energy into other stuff, you know.
And you know, for me, you know, I think it's in a sense, I'm like, it's annoying, right? Seeing that type of stuff.
Those things it is.
Yeah, I think that's what it is more than anything for me. It's not that I'm wishing the bad on anyone or like,
definitely,
you know, whatever. But to me, it's annoying because I'm like, man, you know, I just I wish there was some credibility behind what you're saying, you know? Because if there was, maybe you would be helping people in the right way.
Right.
You could be helping people and you take that in and, you know, applaud yourself and toot your own horn for that. But you're not, the advice you're giving could actually be hurting someone far more than helping. And that's where, for me, you know, it's like annoying. Does that make sense? But at the same time, like you said, you know, I don't worry about it, and I see it, and I'm like, whatever. And now, but I'm not gonna be freaking, you know, Superman save the world, you know, type of deal. I'm just a guy who has a podcast who speaks on things that I know are happening out there, and it's like, if I raise my voice about it in the right way by confronting it the right form and doing that, then at least someone can take that home and be like, okay, I should check out what I'm actually listening to or who I'm actually listening to, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who just listen to terrible people, and it's like, don't do that. But
and that's not to say that I don't do anything about it ever, you know? But like, I'm, you know, not all the time where it's like,
it's not consuming your life either. I go about my life just like I do with just like anyone else, I'm sure, you know. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad out there, and that's always going to be the case in this life. And so, Oscar, any last advice you want to give before we head out?
Last advice? I don't know. I guess just, you know, just be honest with yourselves, take care of yourselves, you know, do the best you can, you know.
Hell yeah.
Because, I mean, your best is going to look different every day, you know, but as long as you're doing what you can, you know, and just also giving yourself some grace. Because, you know, one thing that I was going to say earlier that I kind of slipped my mind was when we were talking about like trauma and stuff, where it's like, where we were saying like, I know I'm not in that spot, but it feels like I am again. Because sometimes like, you know, something up here, but like your body doesn't feel it or believe it. So there's that disconnect of like, I'm safe, but your body's like, no, we're not. Like we're in a bad, you know. And so sometimes, again, you know, those are like trauma response stuff. So like, again, you know, giving yourself some grace of like, sometimes, you know, you do or say certain things, you know, and it's not always entirely your fault. And I don't say that to be like, you know, just like go and say whatever you want. And like, you know, this is your clean sheet, you know, like, because, I don't know, sometimes your body, like, you know, reacts a certain way and shuts down, like in certain circumstances, you know. Another thing to check out is like the polyvagal theory, you know, there's some good stuff on that. Polyvagal theory. It's just basically expands on the whole fight, flight,
mode.
It's fight, flights. Well, it's like 3 different zones, like a red, yellow, and green. Safety, danger, and then just like shut down. Like freeze. Freeze. So like that's when like your body is like shutting down, you know, like where your body's like, I'm gonna die. So just you know, so you don't fight or flight, you just like boom, shut down, and then it's like, why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you? And it's like, I don't know, I just couldn't. And it's like, your body thought it was gonna die. It just like, you know. So, you know, like giving yourself grace and self-compassion, and like if you are struggling, you know, and if you feel like you aren't doing the things you should be doing, you know, because it's hard, you know. Sometimes it's not that like you don't want to do like, you know, the things that make you feel good or that are going to benefit you. Sometimes you're just in such, you know, such a bad of a place where like you're just surviving, or you're just doing what feels good at the time, and that's kind of keeping you afloat, you know. And you know, there's nothing like necessarily wrong in that, you know. So like, you know, giving yourself compassion if you are in that spot, you know, where it's like you need to get to a spot where you are more safe, and then you can get out of those like, you know, those like traumas and stuff, you know. So I don't know, just give yourself some more compassion. Self-love is huge too. If you don't love yourself, like how can you expect others to love you, right? Or like how can you tell others how to love you, you know? Just taking care of yourselves, I guess. I don't know. Cool. Take care.
Oscar, do you want to give out your Instagram or no?
No.
All right.
It's private. I don't. You know.
Right. We won't give out your Instagram for the safety of
I like to have
progress.
some sort of privacy.
Right.
I have made an Instagram account more for like my therapy stuff, but it's still, I haven't done anything with it.
Okay.
I made it. There's no post on it yet. It's just there.
Yeah.
So, but when I don't know, at some point I will probably.
So when we have you back on, because I want to have you back on.
Okay, cool.
And talk more about this in
Yeah.
depth. We'll give. Hopefully by then you'll have at least one post on your Instagram.
We'll see, because some of it is my stuff too, where I'm like, I don't know if I want to be posting stuff.
Right.
Like on mine, it's fine when I post just whatever. Like you follow me. Like I just post random crap. Some's like mental health stuff. Some is just weird stuff.
Right.
But like, I don't know. I'm not at that point yet where I'm like, okay, let me do this social media thing and like put some stuff out there to help people out. Like
Right.
I'm not quite there yet.
So if you are there back when you come back, then we'll assign that. But thank you, Oscar, for coming through. This was a super fun conversation for me, just because it was.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just fun. I think we touched on a lot of good points, and I think a lot of people will like this. So
I hope so.
And if not, then frickin' find someone that you like who talks about this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But just make sure they're good
me,
advice. Right? Guys, go check us out on Instagram, the OAP official, Brandon with an A, Brandon A. Lara, and
Just plug in your stuff in.
Yeah, there you go.
Just in case they didn't see the sign.
Yeah, literally the sign says it. OAP official, the OAP official, Brandon A. Lara.
The OAP.
Yeah.
Because I typed in just OAP and I'm like, where?
I tried, dude. They took the name already.
Yeah, and then I did the Once Upon a project. Damn it, I got it wrong. I went straight from here to here, and I'm like, whoops.
Well, I'll tag you, but actually, no, I won't tag you that way. People.
Oh no, I was trying to like find like just watch a couple of videos and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because I've seen like clips and stuff, but I was like, I'm gonna watch like a full. And then it didn't come up, so I was like, oh. Now I know why.
Project podcast.
Now I know why.
And so what else? Oh, Jackie, AAA CKIE _ and Apple, Spotify, and YouTube were under Once a Project Podcast. Again, Once a Project Podcast. And so, yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great day. We love y'all. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.